I've 45 years. The first 40 were amazing, but the last 5 have been hard. It's hard when you have to feed, change, take someone to the bathroom, and do other things like that every day. Nobody ever heard Jay Leno talk about his feelings, but there was one person he loved no matter what. He went from the busy stage to the quiet home, through happiness and sadness, and then back to the place where it all started. Next to the woman who had been with him since he was a stranger. A promise made in 1980 and a love that lasts for 50 years. At age 75, he finally said what everyone wanted to hear. We are about to find out the story behind that statement. By 2014, Jay Leno had been on The Tonight Show for 20 years. He then quit and went back to where he started. The garage. There was no longer a crowd or a late-night set. There was only the sound of metal engines and the familiar smell of oil. He has been working hard on Jay Leno's Garage since 2015, a show where he talks about cars, which is another love of his besides the stage. The public records show that he has a collection of more than 180 classic and modern cars and motorbikes. There are some rare models among them, like the 1910 white steam car, the 1999 Y2K jet bike, the 1966 Volkswagen 21, and the 2012 Tata Nano. Each one has a story to tell and a memory from the road he has taken. In the same place, he also faced his first big trial. A small spark hit the gas tank in November 2022 while someone was working on an old car. It quickly caught fire. Jay's face and hands were badly burned, and he was rushed to the hospital for emergency care. I said, blow some air through the line, and let's see what we can put. Then there was a line, then boom. All of a sudden, boom. I got gas in my face. The starter light then flashed, and my face lit on fire. Before he could fully get better in January 2023, he broke his ribs, kneecaps, and shoulder in a motorcycle accident. Doctors said that things could have gone much worse if he had been going a little faster. In November 2024, someone fell again and hurt their face and hand. 3 accidents in 2 years in a row. For a man who had lived in the public eye, that string of bad luck ended any idea that he could not be hurt. He needed help, but he wasn't the only one. He had been married to Mavis Leno for almost 50 years at that point, and she started to clearly lose her mind. Doctors told her she had worsening dementia, which meant she needed a legal guardian to make decisions about her money and medical care. Jay sent a plea to the Los Angeles court at the beginning of 2024 to get authority over the property they owned together. The court agreed to give him full management rights in April. The choice wasn't just a legal procedure. That moment when love became a matter of life and duty became the only way to show love was a turning point. Jay only said, "I like taking care of her," in an interview months later. That statement had it all: duty, compassion, and being alone. I really enjoy spending time with Mariah. It's fine if I go home, make her food, and watch TV. It's all right. It's pretty much the same as before, but I have to feed her and do all those other things. I like it though. I enjoy taking care of her. From the time of hospitals and court papers to 2025, the words he spoke were the last ones he would ever keep. Someone said something that everyone could not avoid. We're going to take this road. When I could, I always brought her with me. We had a great time every time. It was always fun. We feel like we're always on a date. A statement for all time. In the beginning of 2025, Jay Leno spoke slowly during a live show. I loved her very much. 49 years together, almost 50 years with the only woman he ever called my life. Now boiled down to 7 words. No longer can Mavis Leno think straight. Still, she laughs whenever she hears his voice or watches old videos of them together, as if memories come back for a short time. A different time, Jay said that she still has the fire. Jay's whole way of life has changed since his wife's illness got worse. To keep working, he has cut short his trips, turned down long-term offers, and only taken on small shows. He gets home on time every night, cooks, and then watches old movies with Mavis. The things he does to remember have become his way of keeping love alive. She no longer does love things, but she keeps up old habits that keep her mind busy. He keeps telling Mavis the same old story she has heard 1,000 times, even though he knows she won't answer. The Los Angeles court accepted a guardianship document that gives him legal power to make decisions about his money and health. Even though it's a right, Jay doesn't think it's the most important thing. The memories are the most important thing to him, and no rule or signature can protect them. In a behind-the-scenes talk, he said, "Every morning I just think about whether she'll smile today. It's enough if she does." People say that the house where they live now is quiet and that few strangers ever come to see them. Friends who know Jay well say that he still gets up early, eats breakfast, reads the paper, and then walks Mavis around the yard. He talks to her all the time, but she doesn't always know who he is. Many of Jay's friends have left the public eye at age 75, but he still shows up, but not to talk about fame or cars, but to talk about Mavis. He once said, "Never thought I could be this lucky," at the end of a TV appearance. Instead of being funny, it was the voice of a husband who has been through enough to know how important friendship is. People used to think of this man as the face of American laughter, but now he picks silence as the last language he will use to love. After that, everything goes full circle and comes back to the start. In Los Angeles in 1976, two strangers walked into the same room at the same time, and one of Hollywood's most famous love stories was born. The Time of Fate. In January 1976, a young stand-up comic named Jay Leno did a late-night show at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. The woman who would become his wife, Mavis Nicholson, was only there to meet friends in the TV production group. She had no other plans. That night, though, a short talk in the dim yellow lights and laughing began a friendship that would last for almost 50 years. Jay said that the first thing he thought when he saw Mavis was, "That's the person I'm going to be with." Mavis later said in interviews that she wasn't looking for a relationship at all. Her life was simple back then, she mostly wrote and did freelance work. Things were different after that night at the comedy shop. Jay talked to her right after his set and asked her to meet him for coffee. They talked late into the night. Mavis told me later that we hadn't planned anything. It felt like it should be there. The link formed so quickly that neither of them could explain it. Since then, it's kept them together. Jay began to think about marriage in a very realistic way as their relationship grew. He told the story of his plan again in a later interview, "I had this insurance policy. We're safe if we're married." The reason sounded dull, but it was really the man's desire to protect his money, which he had learned to be very careful with. He was afraid that Mavis would not be able to get his insurance if something happened to him. They got married at a friend's house on November 30, 1980. Jay picked that date because it was the same day his parents got married. This is just one small way that he kept family traditions alive. When people asked Jay why they had such a simple wedding, he would always say that it was because they were starting a life, not an event. The wedding was short, less than an hour, but it set the stage for a marriage that would last more than 40 years. Their story was also one of a kind. Another way to look at it is that they both agreed from the start not to have kids. In an interview with the Washington Post, Mavis said that she had felt stuck in the traditional idea of a woman since she was a kid. As she watched The Honeymooners, she understood that women were always having to make sacrifices. She told her mother when she was 8 years old that she would never get married or have children. Later, agreed with that choice. He said on a talk show, "We didn't want kids, and that made life easier. Each of us was free in our own way." In the late 1970s, Jay was on tour all over the United States. While Mavis stayed in Los Angeles and stuck to a plan, he spent most of his time on the road. She never got in the way of his work and didn't show up to many of his shows. It was normal for them to be balanced, with one reaching for the spotlight and the other keeping the flame of everyday life alive. They were almost never seen in public together. Everyone in the business knew that Mavis was always there, quietly, behind Jay's calmness. When the attention turned to Jay, they started their first test. Tour plans often split up their lives, and fame was always knocking on their door. They didn't let the attention get to them, instead, they took a step back and built a life that was calmer and less busy. In that stillness, the shape of a lasting home slowly became clear. The anchor in the sun of fame. Jay Leno's busiest years of his work began in the early 1980s. He was on tours all the time, did a lot of tapings, and was rarely home for more than a few days at a time. The more people loved him, the more pressure there was for him to keep doing his best. Mavis Leno, on the other hand, decided to stay out of the spotlight and remain a quiet force behind the scenes. She took care of bills, money, and keeping things running smoothly at home so Jay could focus on his work. Their lives ran smoothly like a well-oiled machine. While the other made sure life went as planned, the first moved with the stage. When Jay started making regular TV appearances, Mavis slowly found her own way. She had been interested in women's rights for a long time, but it wasn't until the late 1990s that she turned her attention to action. Mavis was named chair of the Feminist Majority Foundation's Stop Gender Apartheid in Afghanistan campaign in 1997. The group worked to make people around the world more aware of the rights of Afghan women as the Taliban tightened their grip on power. As her boss, she made the effort bigger by planning lectures and big fundraising events all over the United States. Mavis's job had nothing to do with Jay's life. They made each other better. Jay got people to connect with him through humor, while Mavis used social media to share kindness. They gave $100,000 to the Feminist Majority Foundation together in 1999. The gift that was made public paid for health and education programs, which gave Afghan women the chance to learn how to work and feel safe. At a meeting that same year, the director of the group said, "They don't just donate. They show up, pay attention, and use their power in the media to talk about important things." Jay and Mavis had the same outlook on life, even though they worked in different areas. Both of them said the same thing when asked why they chose not to have children. No one has to give up their choice. For them, getting married didn't need a long-term plan or a fixed condition. They stayed close because they respected each other's room. As the wife of a famous comic, Mavis never thought of herself as such, and Jay never made Mavis a part of his public image. By the middle of the 1990s, when Jay fully took over as host of The Tonight Show, their personal lives were in the public eye. Still, they kept up their quiet way of life. It didn't have any fancy parties or public shows of family life. The couple only showed up together at important social events, especially ones that raise money for women's rights and good causes. There were no big turns in their lives. The peace and quiet were the building blocks for what came next. Jay once said, "If I weren't on stage, I'd just be a guy fixing cars in a garage." This was one of the few times he talked about marriage. "She loved me even when I was that guy." Mavis never said yes or no to what he said. But the way she lived showed that they were true. She worked hard for women's rights by reading, writing, and directing projects for almost 20 years without seeking fame or a title. At this point, they figured out how to live in between two worlds, the busy world of TV and the quiet world of their Los Angeles home. But when their fame reached its peak, the rough seas got worse. Every choice Jay Leno made became the subject of close attention when he was on top of TV. Internal fights over airtime, and NBC's power problems were talked about all over the country. The storms behind Height of Glory. Over 1 million Americans knew who Jay Leno was by the start of the new century. He had been the host of The Tonight Show since 1992, a record-setting 10 years during which the show became a late-night TV classic. Every night, more than 5 million people watched from their living rooms to hear him talk with leaders, singers, actors, and regular people. There was more to The Tonight Show with Jay Leno than just fun. In America, it was just part of daily life. Jay wasn't just a comic anymore at that point. He was an important part of culture. However, every top has rough spots. NBC agreed in 2004 that when Jay's contract ended in 2009, the show would be run by Conan O'Brien, who was Jay's obvious successor. Up until changes in their schedules put two generations of comedians in direct conflict with each other, everything seemed fine. In June 2009, Conan officially took over The Tonight Show, and Jay got a new show at 10 p.m. called The Jay Leno Show. After 6 months, the numbers dropped sharply. NBC chose to move Jay back to his original time slot at 11:35, which meant that Conan's show had to be moved to 12:05. In public, Conan said, "No, I will not follow Jay at 12:05. The comment shocked the industry and was picked up by media around the world as a sign of the crisis in American television. Every newspaper in the country talked about The Tonight Show war for weeks. The public was divided into two groups, those who supported Conan and those who supported Jay. There was a lot of abuse on the internet. Forums for comedy turned into battlegrounds. Jay never yelled during the storm. He always showed up on time, the show always went the same way, and he started each one with his signature smile. When asked about that time years later, he just said, "I have no regrets." It was a short line, but it showed how he felt about the whole thing. There was no defense, blame, or rejection. It was the answer of someone who had been looked at closely over every move and word for a long time. Mavis Leno stayed out of the news the whole time of the incident. It wasn't that she wasn't there, she chose to be quiet. She knew that every word could be changed and that Jay needed a place where there was no noise from other people. She kept working for the Feminist Majority Foundation and sometimes went with him behind the scenes before stepping back out of the public eye again. For them, peace wasn't being protected, it was not having to explain. By 2010, Jay was back on The Tonight Show for good. The argument went on, but he kept quiet and worked on his skill. The show's ratings leveled off, and it took back its top spot on late-night TV. In the years that followed, he kept up a steady pace. 5 nights a week, with no long breaks or stops. Not many people in Hollywood could keep up that beat. He said, "Because I never saw it as a job," when asked why. "I do what I like best." During this time, Jay didn't talk about Mavis very often. It was clear that he respected her every time he did it. He told her that she was the only person whose advice he really took. Mavis softly helped him keep a balance between work and life, even though she was never in the TV world. It was clear that they were connected, he made millions of people laugh, and she kept them calm in their shared world. Last time they were on The Tonight Show was in February 2014. When the last show finished, there was a lot of applause, and a group of famous people said goodbye to him. He thanked his employees and the people who had watched him over the past 20 years. At the end of his show, he said, "When I started, I was a kid with a dream. I'll let someone else dream about it now." Jay would have liked a goodbye that was free of drama and emotion. Short, clear, and kind. Without a fuss, he left the stage when the studio lights went down. Mavis was being watched by someone behind the screen. When the shows were over, she was the last person to congratulate him. She was always the first to meet him. Jay's lead never changed in more than 20 years in the public eye. That bass was still there when the lights went out. Even though the stage was beautiful, Jay was able to get through those years thanks to Mavis's silence. Mavis was a woman who never wanted notice. They got through every bad thing by following a simple rule: fame only lives in front of the camera. Behind closed doors is where real love lives. After the last round of applause, Jay Leno left the stage with his usual smile. Mavis was still there in their quiet Los Angeles home. The one person he had to see every time the show was over. Let people know that you think love isn't about making promises and breaking them, then please like this video. The story of Jay Leno and Mavis Leno isn't loud or flashy. It's strong enough to make everyone quiet. Spread the word about this video so more people can see that love stories can last through fame and loss. Don't forget to sign up too. Because behind every video are the most honest, simple stories that will touch your heart.